The Los Angeles Clippers, towards the end of the season, they had 2 games left. Okay, the first game was against the Houston Rockets, the worst team, like statistically, in terms of win-loss record, the worst team in the NBA. In that game, they started Rajon Rondo, Jay Scrubb, his name's literally Jay Scrubb, Luke Kennard, Marcus Morris, and Ivica Zubac. And, some Clipper fans say, hey, we're just resting our players, which is kind of weird, resting your players when you're a couple of games away from potentially attaining a higher seed. And then, conveniently enough, the Clippers went against the OKC Thunder, which I believe is like the 3rd worst team in the NBA, if I'm correct. And once again, starting 5 that didn't have Kawhi Leonard or Paul George in it, rested for load management. And yeah, you could make the argument, hey, we're resting our players. But at the same time, if you have an opportunity to get a higher seed, and you're like a game or 2 away from potentially winning a higher seed, at least from my understanding historically, teams do everything they can to try to get that higher seed.
Well, I mean, at the same time, like, what is home court now? Like, is it really going to be like that important in these playoffs? Like, do we know the capacity that of fans that are just going to be let inside an arena?
It varies.
It can. At least the way I'm understanding it is, as we get deeper and deeper in the playoffs, we might see larger and larger crowds. That remains to be seen. But regardless,
I don't think it's not. I was gonna say it's not as much home court. Not like it's more of like the Lakers are straight up avoiding the Clippers. I mean, the Clippers are straight up avoiding the Lakers.
Yeah, I also think it's just one of those things where it's like it just made sense. Like, why would you want to play the Lakers in the first round? You get to rest your players. I mean, we saw, I think LeBron had an ankle injury in the final game. He had a little scare or something. So it's just one of those situations where you're being better safe than sorry. And I mean, yeah, I wouldn't want to play the Lakers either.
I would say it's a smart strategy move, but like it also comes across as they're being little bitches. But yeah, so that's why they're getting like hate, of course. I mean, they're straight up. You know what I'll say? Okay, so we get the Los Angeles Clippers, we get Kawhi Leonard, we get Paul George, we get these 2 guys, and we get a lot of hype. We get the battle for LA. Look at these guys. They're going to take over. This is going to be an amazing, battle. And then we have the Lakers. They're not doing anything to avoid the Clippers. They're like, all right, let's play the Clippers. Bring them on. Whatever. The Clippers are over here going, let's try to avoid the Lakers as much as possible because, they're not saying like, okay, we'll see them in the Western Conference Finals. They're saying hopefully they get knocked out beforehand. So if you're going to be hyping up the battle for LA and everything, then I think that the Clippers deserve every single amount of hate that is thrown at them for basically tanking the last 2 games. I mean, throwing the games. It's pretty obvious that they did that, but I mean, we'll see if it ends up being a smart strategic move.
You also have to think about like Tyronn Lue too. Isn't it his first year, right? So if you're first year head coach, obviously you're not going to want to get bounced in the first round by the Los Angeles Clippers, or you're going to be, by the Lakers, or you're going to be on the hot seat. So
they would never play the Lakers in the first round.
Wait, what?
The Lakers set it up so the Clippers set it up so that they are now the 4 seed, and they're playing the Mavericks in the first round, and then they would play the winner. What the Clippers are assuming, which by the way could blow up in their face, which would be hilarious. I hope the Golden State Warriors win so this does blow up in their face, okay? Because the Clippers are assuming, based on the playing game, the 7 and the 8 seeds play. Whoever wins that game becomes the 7 seed. The Clippers lost, assuming that the Lakers are going to be the 7 seed. So now the Clippers are in the 4-5 seed matchup and would play the winner of the Jazz and potentially, let's say, Warriors or Grizzlies or whatever. That is what the Clippers think is going to happen. But if the Lakers end up winning, if the Lakers end up losing to the Warriors and then they win the second game, then the Lakers become the 8 seed and the Clippers would ironically play them in the second round if both teams were to win.
So I have a question for both of you guys. Do you think the Clippers this year are stronger than last year's Clippers? Do you think they're a better team?
Yeah, I think they're a better team for sure, and I think they learned from a lot of their mistakes. To touch back on what I said earlier, um, I now understand what you're saying, Korzemba, and at the same time, though, like, can you blame Tyrone Lue for like not for trying to avoid the Lakers at all costs? I know, like you said, like it's a weak move, but I know you're a Bulls fan. If you could have avoided LeBron in the playoffs, you would have did it hands down, right?
Listen, like that's what I'm saying. Like I like appreciate the strategy. I think it is a smart strategic move. But when you go into this like hype up mode of like we're gonna be the Kings of LA, we're gonna take over, and then you avoid them, you deserve any criticism coming your way for doing that.
Are they
in my
still
opinion.
doing that though? Have they still been doing that? Like, yo, we're the big bad Clippers. We're taking
It's more of
over
I think
LA.
it's more of a situation where it was like LeBron and the big three, where it was like not one, not two, not three, and then they lost the finals the first year and they shut up and stopped doing things like that. Like
It was
the Clippers,
yeah.
hype, it was a lot of hype in the first year. Honestly, the Clippers have been flying under the radar.
Yeah, I feel like they've learned. I feel like they've learned at least a small lesson from last year. I think they've been
Yeah,
humbled a little
so-
bit.
I
So-
could definitely see the Clippers being a surprise team because of that. Honestly, like
Yeah, so guys, we are capping off the giveaway to the first 40,000 subscribers that turn on our notifications for the Laced Up podcast. All you have to do to enter for a chance to win a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X is subscribe, hit that notification bell. If you want to do us a favor, leave a like on the pod and let me know in the comment section down below when it's done. You'll enter for a chance to win a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X. So yeah, I was actually going to get into a matchup. I could see them, I think they're like the number one biggest boom or bust team in the West. I think they could either surprise a lot of people, and if they fulfill their potential, they can make a deep run, or I could see them even losing to the Dallas Mavericks in the first round. And if you remember last year in the NBA playoffs, when Porzingis was healthy with Doncic, the Los Angeles Clippers had a decent amount of trouble with them. Now, earlier on in the NBA season, the Mavericks got off to a very slow start because I think they became a significantly worse team this year because they got rid of some of their shooting. They lost Seth Curry. But after the acquisition of JJ Redick, it seems to me that they are a significantly better team, and I think they could take out the Clippers if they are fully healthy this year.
You think JJ Redick makes the Mavericks a lot better?
No. I'm saying that they got some shooting back, and they're able to space the floor.
JJ
So-
Redick?
I mean, bro, if I told you Seth Curry makes a team a lot better, you'd look at me funny too.
Yo, I'm a
if you-
Pelicans fan. I watched JJ Redick all year. He was terrible. I'm about to see if he got better with the Mavericks though.
I'll agree.
So,
Seth
but-
Curry makes the
But
team
like,
better.
if you take,
Yeah.
but,
Oh,
like,
Seth Curry for sure.
But like, yeah, I think Seth Curry is probably one of the more underrated players because goes to the Sixers. The Sixers did a remarkable job in the offseason getting some shooting, space the floor a little bit better, and place a bigger emphasis on defense. Now they're the number one seed in the East. But back to the Mavericks and Clippers, I think there's a chance the Mavericks could pull this off. I think there's a better chance that the Clippers win, but either way, I think that there is so much at stake for the Los Angeles Clippers this year. Like, Kawhi Leonard could opt out after this season. And yeah, he's already experienced like postseason success. He's won 2 championships. He's won a finals MVP. He's won it as the guy for a team that's never won a championship before. And now I remember like when he tried to sign, when he was going into his free agency, his number one priority was being back in LA or California. I don't exactly recall when. It was one of those two. This free agency would probably answer that question for us. So if you're Kawhi Leonard, you're taking a step back. You're with the Los Angeles Clippers. First year didn't go according to plan. Second year, this year, if you get bounced out in the first round, the Clippers have no cap space. There's no way to improve this team. Maybe if they make some sort of trade, possibly, but they're already committed to Paul George. They already are committed to players like Luke Kennard, Marcus Morris. So at this point, this is the best the team's going to get. So if they're bounced out in the first round, what do you think the odds are that Kawhi Leonard stays?
I mean, I hate to say it just based on interest level, but from everything that I hear from members of the media and everything, it sounds like Kawhi is pretty committed to staying behind the scenes. But at the end of the day, you don't know. We don't know. And I think a first round loss, especially yeah, that would make you, you have to consider, because, a second round, if you lose, let's say they lose to, I don't know, they haven't had that great, like they haven't been a top team, but if you lose in the first round, yeah, you get bounced. You have to rethink a lot of things. Same with the Sixers, who we could get into later on. But if the Sixers don't even reach the Eastern Conference Finals, they have the easiest path in the East right now. If they don't reach the Eastern Conference Finals, like, you start to question things like, oh, do we finally make a move? So with Kawhi, it sounds like he's going to stay. He literally left an NBA champion to go to the Clippers. So I'm not sure where his motive is in terms of winning, like where that is it in his priority list, or like, does he love the LA lifestyle? Does he just like, being marketed and having his name out there? I would love to see remember back when he was in San Antonio and Toronto, he had this whole thing about how he wasn't getting marketed enough and he wasn't making enough money, marketing wise. He wasn't making shoe money. He wasn't getting any of that. I would love to see a comparison of how much money he's made since he's been in LA, because I think that's very important.
With Kawhi, I mean, I think it's just too much speculation for me to call it. I really don't want to make assumptions on whether he's going to stay or if he's going to go, because there's just too many moving pieces right now. Like you said, like, what if the Clippers do get bounced in the first round? What if they make a decent run? I remember when he was with Toronto, I was like, oh, if they win a championship, no way he's leaving. I think we saw him at a Blue Jays game like a few days later or something, right? And of course, he ends up going to the Clippers. So Kawhi is one of those guys where he's just like on his own type of time, and I'm not even sure he knows what's going on right now. So
if I was him, I wouldn't know either. I would be I would want it to work out. I would want it to work out in LA, but yeah, if your team loses in the first round, especially to Luka, an up and coming superstar, yet he is a superstar at this point. If you lose straight up to Luka and the Dallas Mavericks, that's kind of like even more like, you're not losing to a Chris Paul or someone. You're losing to a young superstar, and you're looking and you're going, okay, is this team just going to get better and we're just going to be left behind?
Yeah.
If you're still here while the music is cued, here are 2 videos I think you are definitely going to enjoy. Make sure to click on one of them. Again, I know you're going to love it. And other than that, have a great day and peace.